this nation disappears. And a nation on the slippery slope to moral decay, educational decay, military decay, economic decay, a nation that kills babies and lets sodomites play in the street. God will have to judge. I believe America will fall from its pedestal of power down to a third, fourth, eighth, ninth, 12th rate nation. There'll be a nothing, a non-entity by the end of the tribulation period.
God says, come out of her, my people. Foreigners or foreign nations will go back to their places and forsake America. And I've spoken many times of this exodus, that I've seen people from Honduras, I've seen people from Chile, I've seen people from Brazil, I've seen people from Mexico and many other places, many African nations flooding out of the United States to go back to America. The next part is economic crash and ruination. God says this is a nation that is federally bankrupt, empty coffers, playing with the books, getting creative with the numbers, cooking the books.
A nation that is not governed by morality and moral principles is a nation that's headed for an abyss. And I think black people have been struggling to get into this system, maybe getting into a system that in the final analysis is a Sodom and Gomorrah, will not work. Because its selfish goals, its need for profit, its need for supremacy, its need to be the best has clouded its moral vision. And with no moral vision, no nation can be healthy enough to lead its people anywhere except to destruction.
Hello, sir, fam. How are you doing? I hope you're doing great wherever you are. Now, many people have talked about the decline of the United States. Geopolitics, professors, scholars trying to give the perspective in regards as to why, economists, professors trying to give the perspective as to why the United States is crumbling. Amongst that, we also have religious leaders who have come out and talked about why the United States is falling. For the longest time, when you have checked my video, I've been inviting economic professors, geopolitical professors, trying to talk about why the United States is the way it is, just like Rome. There are a couple of characteristics that made even Rome to crumble, and the same thing is being observed with the United States. So that being said, it's important for us to understand this. Now, today we are going to look at the religious perspective. That is, people are saying that America is under divine judgment. It's true because look at the argument. The argument is America itself has kept, black people 400 years working for them. And now it is not right? In the face of God, it is not right. Because the very systems that were put to put black people to be where they are right now, it is the same system that right now is putting also white folks to be wherever they are. And now this video is going to be talking about the religious aspect of all this and also some parts of geopolitical aspects. Now, America's moral and social decline. Many believe America is under divine judgment due to its moral and social decline. Over the past few decades, the country has seen a significant shift away from traditional values, with rising crime, family breakdown, and general decline in ethical standards. Drug addiction, mass shooting, and political corruption all are high right now, contributing to a society plagued by instability and fear. Some argue that America's rejection of spiritual principles has led to chaos, as seen in the increasing normalization of behavior once considered destructive. If one views divine judgment as a consequence of nations' departure from moral order, then America's trajectory suggests it may be experiencing the repercussion of turning away from righteousness. That's the argument. Now, I want us to watch this video. I hope we are all going to be learning, because it's always important to get all the perspective. And I'll be unfair to give all the other accounts and fail to give the religious perspective in regards to this, because people are saying that America is under divine judgment. So let's watch the video. As you know, these are presented Jindok Stories, and I'll be back with our discussion in regards to this. For those who are watching this video for the first time, I'll ask you to subscribe to our channel, join our membership, and really get to see what we can offer you. But until then, this is your presenter, Eugene Doc Stories, and I appreciate you all who are trying to support me through my Cash App, through my Super Thanks. Man, I really appreciate the support that you're giving me. But until then, let's jump right and watch the video. I'll be back with my commentary as usual. Let's watch the video.
Everybody wants to know
what happened to the greatest country in world history, the one that is the most powerful, the most the wealthiest country in the world, America? If America is all of that, and we're going toward end-time events, where do you find America, the United States of America, in Bible prophecy?
John, that is the most asked question in Bible prophecy Q&A. The United States is not mentioned anywhere in prophecy. There's a reference in the book of Zechariah, chapter 14, verse 2, where it says, all nations of the world will gather at Jerusalem at the end of the tribulation period before Christ comes back. If indeed America, after the rapture, is still on this earth and in operation, they will gather with all the nation. Now, listen, here's some sanctified speculation. I believe at the rapture of the church, the backbone of this nation disappears. And the nation on the slippery slope to moral decay, educational decay, military decay, economic decay, a nation that kills babies and lets sodomites play in the street. God will have to judge. I believe America will fall from its pedestal of power down to a third, fourth, eighth, ninth, 12th rate nation. There'll be a nothing, a non-entity by the end of the tribulation period.
Believe you me, after Trump, America is finished. It's not about Trump. I don't know the man. And I'm getting no benefits out of this anyway. Believe you me, I've never seen him. I've seen him on YouTube, whatever, here and there, bits and pieces. But I don't know him. But I'm telling you, Trump is the last one. Because after the trumpet will be blown. You know why America is going to fall? Which is the United Nations, yeah? Two reasons. Because America is challenging God at the moment. It's challenging the Lord. It's going to fall for two reasons. One, internally. The other reason is externally. The internal reason, there will be traitors within America. There are traitors within the White House. There are traitors within the Pentagon. There are traitors within the governmental system. Traitors who have sold America. And the reason why these traitors came up on surface, because America walked away from the Lord. The Lord allowed them to be punished, to teach them that I'm in charge, not you. You think you can rule the world? It is the Lord who rules the world, not you. Infiltrators from within your circle to come and do wondrous things, destroy America. A lot of traitors are within America. And the external reason, it is the wrath of God. Jesus Christ will come very heavily on America, the wrath of God. But internally there is a lot of traitors. They literally sold. You'll remember this. The day America goes, remember what's going to happen to the Christians. Very harsh, very harsh. But the problem with America, it will take the rest of the world with it when it goes down. We read in verse 2, look at this. And he cried, the Lord, mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, is fallen. And when the Lord says it twice, he means that it is fallen. There is no two ways about it. There is no escape. It will fall because America doesn't want to repent. There are good Christians in America still, but it's diminishing. They took the Holy Bibles out of schools. LGBTQ, RSTU, VYZ, they're introduced everywhere. This is the UN. The UN introduced all these laws. You know, it's human rights, remember? Human rights meaning the human can do whatever, however, whenever, with whoever. So if this human comes and one day he says, I want to marry a dog, United Nations says there is a law that protects your rights. You can marry a dog. And when they introduce this law and force the churches to marry same-sex, then there is a law that protects those people and force the church to marry them. If you don't, the church will be closed, fined, and you'll be persecuted and prosecuted and thrown in prison. Because the law of the land says you have to marry these people. The church needs to abide by the laws. A day will come, they will force the churches like they did in some states in America. And when they bring it into the kindergartens and primary schools, and then come and say to this little innocent angel, do you feel you're a boy? Who in their sick mind think this child knows what they're doing? So you are going to dictate and say to the parents, you have no right to teach your child. It is the UN that will teach your child. because we pay money to Australia and other countries. Do you know when any country welcomes refugees, do you know where they get the money for those refugees? The UN pays for it, not Centrelink. Do you think Australia is a nice country? They just bring people in? No, they get rewarded for it. You bring this many people into your country, we'll give you this many millions. So when they give those millions, do you think they're going to give it for free? No. In return, the country is ours. So we do whatever we want to do next time. So when we bring in laws, you implement them, Mr. Prime Minister, because you're just a puppet doing what we dictate to you. That's what it is now. Governments are puppets. Nothing more, nothing less. It's surfaced up now. Everything is in the open, in the clear. So now they're going to teach your child. Parents, whether you like it or not, tough luck. I would choose to die with dignity, with disgrace.
The next part is America is judged by the Lord, and when her judgments fall, they will fall hard. The next part is Kamala Harris will be the leader of America by an exchange of power that is not anticipated or voted for. There will be a sudden change of power in America, no matter who likes it or not. Kamala Harris will be the head of this nation, and it will not happen by the popular will and expression of the people. This is voting. And I shared before that I saw a vision of this woman taking her oath when I was on a live prayer call with others. We're praying about something else entirely, and I began to tell them, you will not believe what I am seeing. I am seeing Kamala Harris standing at the podium saying that today is a great day. Today is a historic day. Today is a day that America has never seen. Because for the first time ever, a woman is in the White House. She is not the Secretary of State. She is not an assistant or an aide. She is in the top seat. She is the President of the United States. Next part is America will have a civil war of 3 years, a brutal war brought on by intolerance of all kinds, but especially a war of ideology. This war will be so violent that it will cause huge loss of life, destruction of property, and mass movement of people outside of America to all parts of the world. This war will also be preceded by people fleeing. So before war even breaks out in this country, God says that people are going to leak and leach out of America in all directions. And we've been seeing that since I started talking about this diaspora, even probably before. But when God brought a highlight on it, very shortly after that, stories began to come out in the media of Americans getting second passport, wealthy Americans who can afford to go and invest in other countries and be given immediate citizenship and things like that. And God says, come out of her, my people. Foreigners or foreign nations will go back to their places and forsake America. And I've spoken many times of this exodus, that I've seen people from Honduras, I've seen people from Chile, I've seen people from Brazil, I've seen people from Mexico and many other places, many African nations flooding out of the United States to go back to America. The next part is economic crash and ruination. God says this is a nation that is federally bankrupt, empty coffers, playing with the books, getting creative with the numbers, cooking the books. You will not kick the can down the road anymore. You will pay the price for your irresponsibility, and many nations will fall down before this financial crisis is done. The economy will fall to Great Depression levels. And Europe, you will go down with America. The next part is Russia is coming to prominence, arise and devour much flesh. And I think that this is in the book of Daniel, where the bear was spoken to and it was told, arise and devour much flesh. So God says Russia is coming to prominence. And we can certainly see that. Niger had a coup I think maybe 2 weeks ago, and they're burning the French flag in their ire and waving the Russian flag around. And many countries in Africa are beginning to pivot to Russia. And these prophecies were on the Master's Voice blog since 2019. Those are my first videos. The fact that Russia will rise and that the world will begin to look to Russia for leadership. And the world will begin to say, America, shush, 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 shush. Vlad is talking and we want to hear what he is saying.
Agitated after what we thought was a very successful gathering and discussion. I've come upon a thought that I don't know how to deal with at this moment. I said, well, what is it? He says, we fought long for integration. It looks like we're going to get it. I think we get the laws. He says, but I'm afraid that I've come upon something I don't know quite what to do with. I'm afraid that we're integrating into a burning house. When we asked for further clarification, Andy Young was with me at that time, my wife, others. He said, America's lost whatever little moral vision it had. Its moral sense has run away from the nation. And a nation that is not governed by morality and moral principles is a nation that's headed for an abyss. And I think black people have been struggling to get into this system, maybe getting into a system that in the final analysis is a Sodom and Gomorrah, will not work. Because its selfish goals, its need for profit, its need for supremacy, its need to be the best has clouded its moral vision. And with no moral vision, no nation can be healthy enough to lead its people anywhere except to destruction.
Why do you believe America, or why is America not mentioned in Bible prophecy as a key player in the end, or are they a player at all for that matter?
No, they're not. We're not. Okay, several possibilities why. Because, and here's what we assume, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, when this coalition of 8 nations comes down to invade Israel, there's no nation that they're afraid of. Nobody can or will intervene on the side of Israel. So we assume there's no superpower in the world, meaning the, unfortunately, the demise, as John Wade would say, of the United States of America, unfortunately. Right. So we're not there, meaning we're not either, we don't exist, or we don't have the political will, the military, the economic. In other words, we're not a superpower anymore, and that's the sad reality of it. So we've been predicting along that line, we're going to continue to see the United States go down the drain, unfortunately, simply because the Bible assumes that we're not a player in the last days.
Why is it that you think why are we a diminished power when we're so powerful today?
Yeah, well,
we can only guess.
Yeah, we can only guess. A lot of reasons why. I think part of it is having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, because we're seen in the world, Greg, as a Christian nation. We are. The rest of the world sees us as Christian, but then they look and come to America and they see things anything but Christian, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's part of the sadness of all this, that we were, we're as Ronald Reagan used to say, the light shining on the hill. And that was the idea behind America, the huddled masses gathering together. 20 out of the first 21 institutions that were found in this country's schools, Harvard, Yale, William and Mary, were founded to train pastors to go out and evangelize the rest of the country. Yeah. We've fallen tremendously away from that calling.
Yeah, one of the ratifiers of the Constitution pointed out that this country was not founded by religionists, but by Christians.
Correct.
And, there are historians who will give us a revisionist version, and they'll try to edit that up. But this is the truth. But we're not claiming that all of America is Christian, but we clearly have a Judeo-Christian foundation that we have strayed from. And it seems to me we know judgment is inevitable. Every nation has a shelf life, doesn't it?
We do.
No matter who. I mean, you go to the great nations of the world, from Babylon to Greece to Rome, etc. They had a beginning, middle, and an end. And that's going to be true of our country as well as any other country. But what we're praying for is before that time comes, that we could have perhaps another great spiritual awakening.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the answer we want. America's not in the Bible in the last days because no one's here. We've got a great revival, the rapture of the church happens, and the country's empty. Wouldn't that be the great answer to it? Yeah.
Amen.
A wall that people trust in, but a wall that will fall. And when that wall falls, all the prophets who spoke of that wall as being a hope and salvation for the people will fall with it. So I'm reading Ezekiel 13, and the Lord is conversationally speaking these things to me. And then right in the middle, he suddenly says, Donald Trump will be killed. Now, brothers and sisters, people losing their lives is terrible. It's terrible. Among Americans and just the whole nation basically being destroyed and set on fire. I saw that. And then the Lord just shared these few thoughts that I will read here. And it said that Trump will be killed. They will not tolerate it for him to come back into public office. The Lord has said this to me before this. I've just never felt the push or the urge to share it because, like I said, involving myself in the transient matter of politics is not really my interest. But the Lord has said this before, that they will not tolerate him to return to public office, that he will not be given a chance to rise again and to have a movement behind him again, because he said that his presence is ruining plans that are bigger than him. His presence is disrupting things that were set in motion long ago. And then the Lord reminded me of several prophetic words that I have actually put on this blog to that effect, that his life will be cut short. And one of them is called POTUS, and another one is called America in Turmoil, Deep State. That was a new one for me, hearing about something called Deep State. So the Lord also explained to me that the pedestal he was standing on is the office of the president, that it was once a noble institution, but now it has become trampled and disgusting because of corruption, and pieces of it, huge pieces of what it means to be president, have been fallen off or maybe even broken off deliberately. And now even the steps that you use to get to the presidency are dirty, fallen, and shameful. So the Lord then said that 2021 will be a difficult, and in fact the word he used is traumatizing year for America. He said that from the first month, America will see damage and disruptions, and the expectations of the American people will cause outcry, resistance, and great anger in the country, and that separation will occur in the nation, and she will be weakened from within as a result. There is another prophecy called Ascendancy, where I spoke about one of the key signs that God said would come to America is that conflict will occur. She will begin to tear herself apart. So the nation will start to lose cohesion. Her people will no longer get a...
Hey, what's up, folks? Now, you've heard all the perspectives that these preachers, different people giving their accounts and how they think as the reason as to why the United States is falling down. Now, we are going to talk about economic collapse and wealth inequality. The U.S. economy, once the strongest in the world, is now struggling under massive debt, inflation, and wealth inequality. The rise of homelessness, job insecurity, and the inability of working class families to afford basic necessities points to a system that is failing its people. Historically, biblical warnings about unjust economic system often led to divine intervention, as seen in the fall of great empires. The economic instability in America mirrors the conditions that preceded in the collapse of past civilization. If America is under judgment, these financial crises could be seen as part of it. Punishment for a society that has allowed greed, corporate exploitation, and corruption to dominate its economy. Also, we're going to talk about political division and social unrest. Right now, another sign of divine judgment could be extreme division within the country. America is more polarized than ever, with deep ideological conflicts tearing the nation apart. Racial tensions, culture wars, political extremism have reached dangerous levels, making unity seem impossible. Biblical history shows that when nations become internally divided, they often fell into destruction. The inability to resolve conflicts peacefully, along with the growing hatred between different groups, suggests that America is experiencing a period of divine reckoning. The widespread violence, riots, and political instability reflect the kind of society decay that precedes major upheaval. Let's go and check natural disaster and environmental crisis. America has also been hit by, increasing number of devastating natural disasters, such as the wildfires, hurricane, floods, and extreme weather patterns that seem to be intensifying every year. Many view these disasters as warning or judgment from a high power, signaling that the nation is out of alignment with divine order. Throughout the history, natural disasters have been seen as a form of divine correction, reminding civilization of their need to return to righteousness. If one believes that nature reflects spiritual consequences, then America's environment crisis could be interpreted as part of broader divine judgment. We also get to check the decline of global influence. America was once undisputed leader of the world, but its global dominance is now being challenged. Countries like China, Russia are rising in power, while the U.S. foreign policy decisions have led to military failures, loss of alliances, and weakened credibility. The decline of American influence on the world stage could be seen as a divine punishment for decades of arrogance, imperialism, exploitation of other nations, just as past empires fell when they stayed too far from justice and righteousness. America's diminishing power might be a sign that it is being humbled through divine intervention. Also, another thing that we need to talk about is the breakdown of family and social values. A strong family structure has historically been the foundation of stable societies. However, America is seeing the disintegration of traditional family unit with high divorce rates, single-parent households, and confusion over gender and identity. Many believe this cultural shift is a key for social instability. If divine judgment comes upon nations that reject natural law and spiritual order, the American current family crisis could be another sign of this judgment, right? The erosion of parental authority, lack of discipline in children, and the media culture that glorifies immorality all contribute to the moral decay that often precedes divine retribution. Also, we get to hear the warnings that were given by religious leaders and prophecies. Throughout the history, religious leaders have warned that America is on the path to its destruction. Figures like Dimitri Duduman, David Wilkerson, and others have prophesied that the U.S. would face divine judgment of God. Some of the predictions, such as the internal conflicts, economic collapse, and rising global hostility, seems to be unfolding today. Whether one believes in these prophecies or not, the parallel between their warnings and the current events suggests that America may indeed be under divine judgment, experiencing the consequences of decades of moral and their behavior. A lot of things have changed, right? And so this is amongst the things that are happening. Also amongst the things that are happening, we are seeing the rise of lawlessness and civil disobedience. Another indication that America might be under divine judgment is the growing lawlessness and disregard for authority. Crime rates in many cities have surged with violent offense becoming more common. Protests often turn into riots, and there is an increasing sense of rebellion against law enforcement and government institutions. In the Bible, societies that rejected moral and legal order often suffer divine punishment. The breakdown of respect for the rule of law, combined with the widespread corruption in leadership, suggests that America is experiencing the consequences of turning away from principles that once held the nation together. If unchecked, these lawlessness could lead to societal collapse. Also, we get to see the corruption of leadership and government dysfunction. Throughout the history, when nations' leaders become corrupt and self-serving, divine judgment often followed. Today in America, there is widespread mistrust of politicians, with both major parties embroiled in scandals, deceit, and power struggles. Many leaders appear more focused on personal gain and political survival than serving the people. The Bible warns that nations suffer when the righteous are removed from leadership and the wicked rule unchecked. The dysfunction in Washington, combined with deep political divisions, suggests that American leadership crisis may be a sign of divine displeasure, leading to country towards chaos and decline. We get to see the decline of faith and rise of secularism as also a point to talk about. One of the most significant indicators of divine judgment is the decline of faith in American society. Church attendance has dropped. The traditional Christian values are increasingly dismissed as outdated or oppressive. Right? Secularism and moral relativism have taken hold, leading to many to question absolute truths. Throughout the history, nations that have abandoned spiritual foundations often experience judgment, as a moral decay led to their downfall. The widespread rejection of faith, combined with growing hostility towards religious principles, may be a key factor in America's current struggle. If divine protection is withdrawn from a nation that turns away from God, then America may be experiencing the consequences of its spiritual decline. We also need to note that. Also, we have a mass psychological and mental health crisis. Another sign of divine judgment could be America's mental health crisis. Anxiety, depression, and suicide rates have soared, especially among youths. People feel hopeless, disconnected, and lost in the world that promotes materialism over purpose. The growing addiction to social media, pornography, and substance like opioid reflects a deeper spiritual emptiness. In the Bible, God often allowed nations to suffer from internal despair when they stayed from His guidance. The current epidemic of mental illness and self-destruction could be a sign that America is spiritually lost, suffering the psychological effects of abandoning truth and moral direction. Also, you get to see the nation's role in promoting immorality worldwide. Many argue that America is under divine judgment because it has become a major exporter of immorality. Throughout the Hollywood, social media, and global policies, the US promotes ideas and behaviors that many religious communities see as corrupting. The spread of hypersexualized culture, the normalization of unethical business practices, and aggressive promotion of controversial social ideologies are viewed as a sign of society that has lost its way. In the past, nations that spread corruption to other lands often faced divine retribution. If America continues down this path, its global influence may turn from dominance to rebellion as it faces repercussion of spreading decadence instead of righteousness. Right? So, just a question. Is there a path to redemption for America? I want to know what you think or what you say about this. As you usually know, this is a presenter Jindok Stories, and I'm hoping to see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Jindok Stories. Until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.